everyone, and welcome to the seventh session of Career by Design. Career by Design is an initiative by Amazing Workplaces and an integrated HR media learning, survey, and certification platform, and Commander Bali, Director Northern Region, Narayana Health. It brings together our passion to bring the best people to consult, advise, and impart knowledge to the students and employee community, and Commander Bali's commitment to help people in their journey and choices. The idea behind doing these career series is to understand the problems being faced by students, employees, and transitioning defense personnel, and addressing these problems in small groups so that we are able to provide each participant with an opportunity to get this query resolved by expert. In the past, we have addressed issues like career transition, job scenarios during pandemic, mock-up interviews, and importance of skilling under the career by design initiative. Today's session is a Q&A session which does not conform to a single topic but addresses your queries and concerns being faced by our participants and people at large. To address these queries, we have with us Sahil Nair, Senior Associate Director HR at KPMG India. Sahil is a behavioral scientist, a design thinker, and human storyteller and writer who has a great following with the student community. I'm sure our audience will benefit from his great insight and experience. Our second guest is Dimple Seth, a learning and development leader at Philips Global Business Services. Career counseling is one of Dimple's key areas of interest. We look forward to hearing and learning more from you, Dimple. Then, of course, we have Commander Bali, a defense veteran who has personally addressed all career by design participants and patiently listened to and resolved their concerns. Thank you to all of you and all our audience for joining in. I promise you today is going to be a great learning experience for all of you. So over to you, Dimple, Commander Bali, and Sahil. Yeah. So Dimple, Commander Bali, and Sahil, I'd like you to address our guests one by one. Yeah, about the current situation because most of the queries that we have are related to people who are undergoing some kind of a career issue or decision making process in the current scenario. So, Commander Bali, you can start with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ekta. And I think we have got two excellent, people on our panel today, Sahil and Dimple, um, who have been sort of into this scenario for many, many years, and have gone and seen the ups and downs of industries, throughout their careers. It's not that for the first time, we will be facing a situation. Of course, it is unprecedented, but I'm sure Dimple and Sahil have faced in their career span many such occasions when suddenly you found a particular sector not growing, suddenly you found the economy not showing, suddenly you found some headwinds coming in. So huge amount of experience today coming from both of them. I can only say one thing now that you know uh, to the I would say happiness for everyone, of every participant here, that I think the worst is really behind India as a country. If you really look at it, we are truly poised to be the leaders in the next a decade or so. Reasons are very simple. I think a huge amount of mistrust on China, turbulence in US, which is seeking global partners across, and also our very clear and very important vaccination program, when two of our vaccines are being seen across the world as the top contenders. In fact, you must have read today Brazil is already wanting to order for and many such countries who because and many of these vaccines, even if they are being developed in US and UK and these countries, are being manufactured in India. So I think coming forward, huge amount of opportunities both in the typical brick and mortar model, the supply chain models, and also into AI ML platforms, because you got a huge talent of young data scientists, extremely qualified financial analysts and financial brains. And I think across the complete spectrum, we have got talent in our country. And because COVID has somehow pushed us to live somehow into spaces which are not very far flung, I would see that huge amount of talent being retained in the country, and we going forward are going to see this country really, really look up. So with that, I think I will hand over to Dimple and then to Sahil to introduce whatever I've said and maybe add on to whatever I said. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commander.
Thank you, Commander Bali. Okay, shall I? Ekta? Thank you.
Yeah,
So
please
thank
go
you so much, Commander Bali, and glad to be on this platform, interacting with Sahil and wonderful guests that we have on this call. A hats off to you, Commander Bali, for ensuring and consistently, coming up with these initiatives, because these are very, very important ones, especially in times of crisis. I would, while this appears to be a crisis, but I personally believe these are opportunity for all of us here, immaterial of what walk of life we are in our career, right? Whether you're just beginning your career or you're even beginning your career choice, or you are at the peak of your career, it just doesn't matter. So one very interesting experience that I've had during two wonderful crises that I have gone through. One has been the huge economic crisis that we encountered in 2008-9, and the second one is now, right, which is COVID. Both of these have a lot of similarities. One is, of course, huge uncertainties. The nature of these crises are different, but then there has been huge uncertainty. We are in a lot of question, and it has definitely forced us to rethink, realign our priorities, and look at how we want to take our future steps, right? So from then to now, I think it's almost a decade plus, and I still see one thing which is constant, which is change. Most of us have heard, but then I think it's getting real day by day as we move ahead, and the span of the change that comes into our world it's reducing, which means we are moving towards a real VUCA world. All of you know the term pretty well, but then now is the time to harness and hone the skill set that we already have and start implementing them, relook at them, right? And adaptability or agility or whatever those words resonates with you, those are the skill sets and the mindset that actually help me to really survive and move ahead and take it's probably a beautiful proverb, right? They say that you have an arrow, right? The arrow first moves backward and then goes and hits the target. So these are the times where you actually look into the current scenario and see how do you want to take a step backward, not really taking a step and stopping things, but reflecting, looking, realigning, and taking a leap to really hit your target that you want to hit at. If these two things from point A to point B are clear, I think the journey will take care of itself. All you have to do is hang on there, move ahead, be a part of these forums, listen to the mentors who are already there on this call, and take it forward. So I do not want to give a lot of yarn now. I'm very curious to hear what the participants have. We do have a few questions, and I'll be happy to share my perspective that will support and give more clarity to everybody here on the call. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dimple, and over to Sahil now. Yeah.
Right. So first of all, Sunday afternoon, thank you so much everyone for joining in. I'm sure you had other things to do as well, but you prioritized this, which is fantastic. I really liked what Commander Bali started off with. He went on without directly diving into the issue, but actually gave us a very nice perspective of the socio-economic, socio-political situation. And when you see, and as we come into what Dimple said, which is the specific instances, you will always see that external factors have a lot of bearing on opportunities which create adversity. So normally we say in adversity, we find opportunity, but I put it the reverse. I would say in opportunity, we need to find adversity. I was on a panel yesterday, and we were talking about the whole concept of saying post-COVID, right? Many of us have been saying, what about job security? And I think this whole concept of job security has been as nuanced as it is today, which has never been ever so before. because job security, in a sense, is a mirage. And the reason why I call it a mirage is because with the way the VUCA in its truest form, and Commander can definitely give examples from the forces, but for a common man and a commoner like you and me, we attended sessions on VUCA, but we never experienced VUCA in our real life. But COVID has been so unprecedented that we actually experienced VUCA. We never knew how a state regulation is going to change. We didn't know what travel restrictions are going to happen. We didn't know how we're going to take care of the safety and security of our team members. We didn't know that if a critical team member gets contracted with COVID, what's the backup plan? And therefore, a lot of these things, from the way I look at it, was a true manifestation of VUCA. I don't want to get into the whole concept of what Commander and Dimple have already spoken about. And therefore, as you see my virtual background, it's all about Q&A. So I think let's make it a lot more interactive, and let's, I know many of you all have punched in your questions earlier, and Ekta has been very kind enough to share it with us. But me being me, I didn't even bother to open it and check, because I said that would kill my spontaneity. So I'm going to let it be live. So if you punched in your questions, and if I don't give the exact answers that you're expecting, maybe that's because it's not scripted. So let's take it live, and Ekta, back to you, back to Commander, as we run through this session. Let's make the most of it. Thank you so much.
So I will start with Dr. LNV's question. He was trying to connect, so and he's there also with us today. His question is about internships. He wants to know how to get accepted for internships among experienced 25 plus but full-time students. So basically, I feel it's a question of transition. Dr. LNV, if you can just unmute yourself and explain the question a little further, I think it would be helpful for all of us.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am, actually.
Good afternoon, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for this discussion, in fact. See, actually, transition, as you have been already mentioning, this is a transition period, and people may completely opt for a new domain, switching over from the current activity. And they cannot really switch over directly. Maybe they need to have some kind of a soft skills or some kind of additional qualification before they really plunge into the new domain. So there are many options now. Actually, with the COVID-related scenarios, many education institutes are offering some kind of a programs for the experienced people also. They are not really differentiating between executive programs and regular programs. So those who are opting for a regular programs, actually I can quote some examples, but I'm not taking more time with you. They need to go with the same kind of a curriculum as the regular students have. That is, one of them is the summer internships, or maybe winter internships, or some kind of a projects with industry interactions. So in this kind of a scenario, when a person who has got some kind of experience and they are really looking for a domain change, and before really making that plunge, they want to have some educational qualifications. In that kind of a scenarios, as per the curriculum requirements, yes, there should be some kind of a industry internship. And if that is the mandatory activity that need to be pursued, how actually industry can really help these kind of transitioning, educational people, or maybe the pursued people, and how we have to go with that. Of course, there will be few cases, but they are very dispersed. Maybe in 3-4 institutions, there will be 2-3 guys, not more than that. So there is a mandatory academic requirement, there is a transition requirement. So how to really bridge the gap between these two things? That is my question. I do not know whether I could convey the complete information, but hope the people can understand. It's not executive program, it's a regular program. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
It was slightly hazy to my mind, but let me try and take a shot, and then I can get Commander and Dimple to pitch in as well.
Sure, thanks, Sairav. Yeah.
So I'm going to try and rephrase the question in the way I've interpreted it. And Doctor, if you believe it's on the right line, fantastic. Otherwise, feel free to come in. 2-3 things to my mind. Point number one, I think if I have to look at this whole concept of transitioning, academia as a course to enable the transition and industry as a receiving body. Yeah, so there is a target audience, there is a facilitator, and there is an incumbent. Yeah, so you have three protagonists. Now, having looked at this, I think there is no better example than the example of people from the forces coming into the civilian life. And we've seen many of those, whether it be people from the army, the navy, police, so on and so forth, be it short service commission colleagues, be it people who've served an entire term, retired as a general, major, and then come in to the civilian life. Each one of them have been a classic case of wonderful transition. Many of them have realized, and I have a lot of relatives, I have a lot of friends in the forces who've come and joined corporate India, and they've really realized that what is very important is a very good, strong educational degree. Not because there is a significant value add. There might be a value add, but it's like a passport into the corporate world. Because if you've really gone through the NDA, you spent 20 years in the forces, the psychology behind that is to say, oh, this guy is a forces guy. How much does he really understand finance? How much does he really understand HR or administration for that matter? And therefore, the education degree, be it executive program, be it full-time program, be it part-time program, doesn't matter. But that acts like a passport into corporate India. Having said that, the real name of the game is the kind of discipline and the skill sets that are brought in by people from the forces. And therefore, they are preferred roles where they excel in. Okay. Now, to add to that, what is industry really doing? Industry is doing two things. One, they are capitalizing on them and catching them early, catching them young. So if you really realize and you see in certain organizations, be it NatGrid, be it RIL, for an example, they picked up Captain Raghuraman, and he's like a motivational speaker out there. We all have heard his stories, so on and so forth, leading security for the group, the intelligence for the group. And like him, he's one person who's obviously made it big, but like him, there are hundreds and thousands of others. Captain Samay, into the whole space, a very close friend of mine, into the whole space of ATMing, right? So how do you really transfer money from one place, from the bank to the ATM, so on and so forth? He's heading that, and from the army, right? So these roles are allied roles. There is a conjunction, and more importantly, with the degree in place, that's the passport. And for industry, they're getting someone with the skill sets that are far better and advanced as compared to someone else who wouldn't have been part of the forces. So that's just one example, but I wanted to pick it up from the perspective of saying the incumbent, the target audience, and the facilitator. And the whole process of transition is, of course, a very beautiful one to be looked at from close quarters. But given that Commander has really lived this journey, I think it'll be wonderful for us to hear from his real life example of from being in the submarine to leading healthcare for one of the firms in our country. And of course, Dimple as well. But Commander, back to you, and then happy to hear Dimple.
Yeah, thanks, Sahil. I think that was a very wonderful perspective, which because you connected the dots, the three of them together and brought it to the fore. I completely agree with you that somehow, of course, when a armed forces person, that's certain. I mean, you took on this example. I mean, there are some qualities which are given, like ethics and this and that, and they say that okay, this is what it is. But in addition to that, you need something more to. First of all, make an entry into the corporate world, and similarly, then to progress from there. So that very critical part that you talked about, education and a good education, I think that is very, very important. The second part I want to talk specifically about internships. As doctor had asked that there are now available across both in the academia and the industry. Many companies, would love to, invite people into the internships, which are both paid and unpaid. It is only a matter of your willingness and what you want to do, and which is that field or domain that you want to get into internship. Many companies, in fact, welcome a lot of interns into their domain because they find them to be, people who can get to see the culture of the company for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever the duration is. And for once, as the COVID, I'm just to give an example, as the COVID went on, a lot of these healthcare postgraduate students who were there in IHMR Delhi, TIS Mumbai, and all these good institutions, they approached us and we did an e-internship for them. So industry would always be ready, and I'm sure so is academia. It's only a matter of willingness and a little bit of searching on the environment available to get into it. So combination of what Sahil said and a little bit extending into it. First is obviously to have a solid foundation. The second is to have the willingness to move and look into these opportunities. And I'm telling you, there are immense opportunities. And as far as industry is concerned, industry is always ready to get, all of people who want to do internship. Dimple, over to you if you have any other perspective.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on only one point, because very beautifully picked up by Sahil and extended by you, Commander Bali. So, I heard Dr. LNV also mentioning about how do you balance the current work and also take up a full-time course, right? I think there are enough opportunities available today. You can even do a weekend programs that is there, but yeah, very, very important. You may not have a full-fledged degree that you may want to take up while you do your transition, but there are diplomas available. There are certifications available through weekends, and you can pick that up and then get into your internships. If internship is not possible, you can even look at supporting or being part of some projects within your current organization if there is a scope. If not, you can even ask someone to mentor you into it and take up a project. So what is more important is align the skill sets required, right? With your current role and your future career transition that you want to look into. What are those common skill sets as well as the soft skills required? Map them, and then see if the overlap is very high basis the percentage, and then transition bit by bit and get into it. So there are multiple options available, and currently we have so many startups they're here available in India. If your line of interest has a startup, please approach them too, and you can still get your experience through them. So the catch is that you should be having a conversation very clearly with them, saying this is what your aims are, and they should be willing to even share a experience or a work experience or the project experience letter with you, which will help you transition very smoothly. I say this because I basically by qualification I'm a psychologist, but I moved into L&D and an HR role, and I took these approaches bit by bit, slowly moved into it. It won't happen just in a zippy, but then yeah, you have to plan them well in advance.
Just to add, I think it's important for us to also be very realistic, and let's bite the bullet, right? So Commander spoke about internships, Dimple spoke about projects, but let me open this question to the audience. Apart from HR, which is all inclusive and accepts people from marketing, from finance, from all other fields, operations, tell me which other function will very easily embrace a person from a different function. What do I mean by that? If you've done sales all your life and tomorrow you want to become a CFO, will finance pick you up easily? The harsh reality, ladies and gentlemen, is no. You may go and do a degree from IIM Ahmedabad and specialize in finance. Will you come in as a CFO? Answer is no. So let's accept it that what Dimple said is earlier on in your career, transitions are easier. As you start specializing, super specializing, become a subject matter expert in a particular field, transitions become more and more difficult. Of course, you can wear multiple hats, play multiple roles, but that doesn't mean that you will be an SME in that subject. Point number one. Point number two, these transitions, like Dimple and Commander mentioned, are very easily facilitated through great amount of hunger on the whole concept of projects. So you're doing your existing role, you stretch, you pick up a project, you deliver on the project, great. But as you consistently keep doing that and build credibility for yourself is when an opportunity comes up, and you need to find the right leaders who are willing to bet on you. Because if you don't have an ecosystem or a right set of leaders who are willing to bet on you and are okay with failure, you will always be stuck to your core. And then moving away from your core, I'm not saying is impossible, but it'll be slightly more difficult.
Yeah, so Sahil, very well picked up. That brings me to another question. in terms of when you want to make these transition, are you even clear? Are we even looking at the why? Why is it that I even want to move ahead, right? So there are multiple reasons that we want to do. But then the reason and the why, if that is clear, then your steps in terms of how come becomes very simple. So many a times, at different stages of your career, we get a little carried away that, yo, that's a good paying job, so I better jump there. Oh, there's a better career, so I may want to switch over there, right? Or it could also be that, no, this is not what my passion is. And I did it so long because I was pushed into it because my qualification was such. But my real passion lies in, a particular other area. If you have that clarity, then it is good to make a huge shift in your career. Else, I would say, do a lot of reflection, think, and then take steps towards it. Maybe sometimes you would just have to look at what else can you do in your current career itself for you to move ahead, rather than just switching the careers.
That if you still feel that you need more clarity, you can definitely connect with either of the panelists, Nimble, Sahil, and Commander Bali, personally on LinkedIn, and ask them to resolve it further for you. I think that would be extremely helpful. Yeah.
Excellent idea. We'll see. We'll definitely, I'll speak to them and I'll share with you also the outcomes. Thank you very much.
So I've received a lot of queries on salary and negotiation, especially in times of pandemic. So I'm reading all those questions. A lot of people, almost 10, 12 people have sent the similar sounding questions, but varied, they are varying in certain degrees. So I'll just read these questions and then we can have, answers to them, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with how to negotiate salary during this pandemic situation.
During the pandemic, how do you negotiate your salary? It all depends upon where you are at the stage of your career, first of all, right? And if it's a fresher, just getting into it, all of us have a benchmark, right? Every organization has a benchmark. Every individual's degree carries a minimum pay that you get into. Plus, during a conversation, basis the projects that you have done in your college or an internship that you have done, you can always, say that this is what it is, and I would be glad if I will be, a 10 or 15% is also added on to it. Now, salary, one thumb rule that I have always followed is, especially if I'm switching a job from one company to the other, is I let the recruiter or the employer know that there shouldn't be any impact on my take home. So the salary negotiation should be more relevant to or related to how much of increase will happen on my take home. When I say take home, reducing all the taxes and everything. So keep those two things in mind. Talk about your skill set. Say why your skill sets and how you will be adding more value to the organizations, and then pitch it. Any salary negotiation, what you should avoid is pressing too much of it. Just explain it, leave it, give them time to get back to you, and then again talk in a very objective manner, and not make it as a little because these can go a little sensitive. So more towards skill sets, experience, and the value that you bring about on the table is what you need to focus on and then share.
How to negotiate salary and avoid being exploited because of being a fresher during pandemic. How can we ask for a hike when you're not working? Yeah.
Okay, so two different questions. Let's take the first one first.
Avoid the same person actually. Yeah.
No worries, but two different questions. So let's take the first one first. How do you avoid being exploited?
Being a fresher.
Being a fresher. So two things. One, freshers are available dime a dozen, right? So the first question you need to really ask yourself is, are you in a position to even negotiate? And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you're not in a position, okay? I'm asking you a rhetoric question. Are you even in a position to negotiate? You may come back and tell me, yes, Sahil, I am in a position to negotiate because reason 1, 2, 3, 4. And these 4 reasons have to very clearly differentiate you from the remaining 100,000 fresher CVs available in the market. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is, apart from differentiation, there has to be a very clear value add where I'm willing to pay a premium. Point number 3, there has to be some amount of credibility, credence in terms of your area of expertise where you have built a personal brand for yourself in that area of expertise. You may say, Sahil, as a fresher, how do I do all of this? I can give you 50 examples of friends on LinkedIn who as freshers have done all of this. Okay, they've built a followership of over 100,000 on LinkedIn. They write research papers while they were doing their graduation. They have a point of view. They interact with industry leaders. They have built a niche. They have a network that they can leverage on. So tomorrow, if I wanted, just as an example, have competitor benchmarking data, they have such good friends in the industry that they can call up their friends and tell me exactly what is happening in the industry among various other organizations, which is very useful for me, which the plain vanilla fresher will never be able to give me. Okay. Now, having said all of this, this sounds very nice. It sounds fancy. Go back to real corporate world. Are you going to be able to play a premium because you have an entry slab, you have a compensation slab for everything, you have a tiering based on the college? I think that is a takeaway from this session that even corporate India needs to start recognizing. Because if I'm going to treat my alpha fresher, which I'm referring to in this example, just like a plain vanilla fresher, I don't think so it's worth it because you're not going to pay the same for a Rolls Royce as what you're going to pay for a Maruti 800. So even corporate India needs to realize that just because you tier or band colleges doesn't mean that you can't make exceptions for the best candidate, because the best candidate is coming with a value add that your plain vanilla guy isn't. So having said all of this, you being in the center of the discussion or the interview, ask yourself these questions first. Are you in a position to even negotiate? And if you are, create that entire business case or create that narrative so that the person sitting on the opposite side of the table very clearly understands why they should pay you 1.5x, 2x as compared to paying X to a plain vanilla graduate. That's my answer to the first question. Ekta, can you repeat the second question, please?
Second question is, during pandemic, how can we ask for hike when you're not working?
Super. So I think here, this is a very personalized question, if I may refer to it that way. You need to differentiate again. The answering of, like doctor spoke about, the why or the how begins with you. If you don't have a job today, is it because of the situation or is it because of you? If it is because of you, that you were not competent or you were a baggage or you were a passenger on the bus and the bus was overloaded and therefore they had to offlay you and you were not the driver of the bus, don't even think of asking for a raise. If you get a job back, you should be happy. But if it wasn't because of you, but it was because of the situation, which is COVID in this particular case, and you have been competent, you are up your alley, you're up your sleeve, you exactly know the name of the game, you're able to contribute, you're able to value add, then in your discussions, you're supposed to very clearly differentiate the individual from the problem or the situation. And the moment you're able to do that, no company is foolish enough not to realize your potential. And when they do realize, they're going to say, okay, he was sitting, just as an example, at 10 lakhs. He lost his job because of the organization's financial ability, whatever. I think basis our compensation bands, his experience, her experience, we could pay 13 to 14 lakhs. And that won't be, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, that won't be a challenge. But if you're in an organization that tries and says, you know what, 10 lakhs, lost his job, our bands allow 13, but let's save 3 lakhs. Let's bring him in at 10 lakhs only. And then let's test him or her for a year or so, and then decide whether we need to give a raise or not. Sit back and ask yourself, do you even want to join an organization like this? Are you even aligned to this kind of organization's value system, beliefs, vision, mission? And if you're not, Of course, if you're talented enough and you're not the problem, you'll find 100 opportunities. It's only a matter of time. So then patience becomes very important. So long answer to a short question, Ekta, but I hope I've answered the two questions. And if the
Let's
person's on the
approach-
call, happy to check with the individual if they've got the answer they were looking for.
Sure. Actually, we have collated the questions, so we don't know exactly which one is asked by which one, but still, I hope it gets answered. Then, Commander Bali, this one comes to you. When we are already facing massive salary cuts, wondering how can we negotiate salaries and perks?
See, the salary cuts are now a thing of the past in most of the industries. So I think, as I was telling you in the beginning also, that's behind us in many of the industries. I mean, barring a few of them which have still not picked up. But let us put a hypothetical situation when you face the situation in the beginning, okay, and let us say there were salary cuts universally across the region. I think it will be very foolish that time to ask for a salary hike, because this was a universal phenomena. It was not to do with the individual company. It was to do with a phenomena which happened because of a force majeure or something in which the businesses sank. In fact, if you see many companies which when the businesses were not affected, in fact, some of the companies, I mean, we are aware of that, where they were not so much affected. They even went and gave salary hikes to people. I mean, so it was. I mean, there were very few of them. So I think this kind of a situation, Ekta. I mean, first of all, if you are in one of those companies at the time, let us say when pandemic or any such situation stuck your company or the industry, it'd be very foolish to ask for a salary hike that time, because you actually are a part of a family of that company or that industry, which should be as much affected by the change when good things are happening and when the bad things are happening. So I think that makes you a part and parcel of that family, which could be a company or an industry. And it shows you that you're aligned as per what the company is going through. Because let us say, a hotel industry, for example, where occupancy was almost nil, but the fixed cost is still there. An aviation industry, okay, and where the businesses suddenly sank and there was no revenue available for you to be paid, even if they were, and companies usually don't have working capitals more than 3 to 4 months. Even that, it is not very, not a lot of companies might have. So if you are in such a situation, I think the answer to that absolutely clearly would be that do not negotiate your salaries that time. Let the recovery happen. But now let us see the situation that you face now. Now, most of the companies have recovered. And let us say you were, when the pandemic stuck, already at a X minus delta salary in a company, and you were expecting an increment in March, April, and it just happened that pandemic stuck at that time. And it's been 1 year now. I'm being very, very practical and seeing what is actually happening in industry. It's been 1 year now, and you think that you should have been in a slightly better position. I think now is the time to start. The appraisal will start now. If you're already in a job, your company has recovered from the doomsday scenario. Now is the time to sit across to your manager and talk to them that this is what you were. Be very objective. Talk about your accomplishments during the hard times that the company went through, and tell them that this is what I should be paid. And I think this, because the companies are coming out of the blues, because appraisal cycle is again beginning, because companies will now start paying more, I think this is the right time to talk about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commander Bali. Dimple, we go to you next. How to ensure a good salary hike in 5 years of career?
This is the most simplest one. Okay. Well, if you are already in a job, in the next 5 years, you have a goal to achieve, especially if it is to do with your salary, focus on bringing a lot of value. Your performance in the current organization that you are in should be really, really good. You must have gathered enough skill sets. Okay, now this need not be only certification. When I speak about skill set, it has to be your experience, your exposure, and the learnings that you had and how you have added value to the current organization. Then systematically decide on the next steps of your. So every year there should be a percentage hike that you should be expecting. Ask, right? So every organization will look at, one, you do what is required of your role, but what is it that you do a little bit of extra to ensure that you are creating your visibility within your current organization, within your current role, for you to move ahead in life. So that's the simplest formula that everybody have used. You can also use it, but what is more important is plan it and execute it. Just knowing is not enough. You have to be very diligent in executing. So continuous learning. And for me, learning is not certification or classroom training or doing a course. It's more of how have you applied and linked it back to organizational value or business impact. You do that immaterial of which field you're in, whether you're in enabling function, whether you're in a business area, sales, marketing, you will be able to really move ahead in your career, not only in your growth, but also in your salary hikes.
Okay, thank you, Dimple. So that brings us to the next one. How can one decide what is the benchmark, what is the deciding benchmark for salary? Sahil?
Is that a question from an employer standpoint or an employee standpoint?
No, employee. These are all employees.
Employee standpoint. Benchmark for salary?
Yeah.
I think you need to know your own worth there. I don't think so you need to really go out there and look at any benchmarks. It's like a typical question, right? Here we're talking about an employee working for an organization, but just flip it to a doctor or a lawyer. When a doctor cures a patient, does the doctor not say that, okay, I want to charge so much for an operation or so much for a surgery? Or a lawyer says, if I'm taking up this case, this is what I'm going to charge. Or if you see a consultant saying, okay, I'm going to put in so many man hours, and this is what I'm going to charge for this kind of work. So ultimately, I would apply the same formula to say, yes, needless to say, there will be benchmarks. And benchmarks would be to say, if you've passed out from a tier 4 college, you'll start at 3, 4, 5 lakhs. You passed out from a tier 1, you'll start up at 15, 20, 30 lakhs. So don't expect that if you passed out from a tier 4 college, your benchmark should be 25 lakhs. Never will happen. And also you'll need to realize that unfortunately in a country like ours, given that we give so much weightage and importance to where you pass out from, that baggage to cover that journey takes decades. I wouldn't say a couple of years, I would say it takes a decade, right? Till you really reach a stage where you say, okay, your institute doesn't matter anymore. And therefore, when you apply benchmarks, you can say, I've been working for 10 years. I have the skill sets. I can do the job well. I'm competent. But somewhere, because of the way we've been working, the institute tag plays a role. If you really look at roles today, even for CHRO roles or for leading roles, they say we want an individual from a tier 1 college, right? And that is a fixation that many people have because they believe even after 25 years of experience, 25 years isn't enough, but IIM Ahmedabad or XLRI or TIS is more important because that's where they classify the so-called pedigree, right? And therefore, when you apply a benchmark, 3 things to look at just to summarize. Number 1, be cognizant of your ecosystem, which is your educational ecosystem. Point number 2, what's the significant value add that you're doing and therefore what price do you want to command? And 3, also see what are you doing differently where you can command a premium, which is faster of what the benchmark would be. And if you want to figure out what these benchmarks are, not very difficult. If you're from HR, of course, you'll have a Naukri login, do a search, you'll get a range. If you're not from HR and you want to figure out, speak to friends, speak to people otherwise, benchmarks are not difficult. A lot of compensation reports, which are very India specific, also give you these benchmarks.
Right. Thank you, Sahil, for addressing this one. Commander Bali, next question goes to you. So how does one take a stand on one's CTC if you know there are people with similar experience who are fine to get absorbed with less?
See, again, it all comes back to where are you situated at that moment? If you're very desperate for a job, then it is a different matter. If you're not desperate for a job, then it's a different matter. If you're already working in a company and then you're comparing yourself, it's a different matter. If you're not working and then you see somewhere, it's a different matter. But as the question is that you're saying that you have some people who are ready to join for a lesser compensation than you, please remember, I'm sure there are compelling circumstances which are making that do so. And, they may not be in the position to really negotiate hard. But, I'm reminded of a poem, uh, 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 not the poem, actually a letter written by Abraham Lincoln to the teacher of his son, and which said that sell your brain and brawn to the highest bidder. Although this is a very, very classical and a very ideal situation, many times it may not be possible to do so. So the answer to this question is, it all depends on how much can you stretch and hold on, or to give up an offer where you found that there was somebody who was telling you to please come at a lesser price or a lesser salary, etc., etc. It is a very, very sort of a, the variables will determine your that time your response. But I think so, if you are ready to wait for some time, and if you feel that you're not being valued at a particular institution or an organization, then as I said again, that your situation determines what you are going to be doing. I think it is better to then hold on and to sell yourself to a slightly better. I mean, the sell yourself is not a very, very right word to use. What I meant to say was then to go and get into a company which actually pays for your worth. But I think once more, it depends on the situation. And Sahil wants to say something, and I'm sure Dimple also has something to add here. Sahil?
Sure. Thanks, Commander. I think very beautifully put. I just want to add 2 cents to this, right? Let's draw an analogy from this wonderful example and question. All the telecom players that we've seen in our country, what have they done to price? They've actually done a price war, right? At one point in time, we used to pay 15 rupees for an incoming call. Incoming went free. A mobile operator came in to say, every incoming call you will get paid. A beautiful mobile operator, which is the Virgin Group, bombed, left India. And now with Jio coming in, you've seen what's happened to the whole equation in the telecom space. Now that is an organization, a company, and you may say, okay, price as a touch point. But Ekta, you may say, my question is very different because I'm talking about an individual here. Let me kid you not. An individual may drop a price point, as Commander said, because of individual circumstances. But flip it up. Tier 1 MBA colleges form a cartel and keep the minimum price for their candidates, which is in a sense saying, if you want to come in on day 0, you want to pick up my people, you need to be from a certain cadre of institution in terms of organization, and you need to offer a certain minimum pay. You may be the best organization in the world, but if you don't offer a certain minimum pay, you can't come in on day 0. So what are they really doing? Are you trying to tell me that all the 120 students in their batch are rock stars? The answer is no. But what they're really saying is, we're forming a cartel to say our top 10 percentile, cream de la cream, will come in at this price point. So while on the other end of the spectrum, you told me that yes, someone is trying to break the whole ecosystem and come in at a lower price, sit back and ask yourself, if you pay peanuts, what are you going to get?
Right.
Good
Simple.
one.
Dimple also wanted to say something.
Yeah, good one, Sahil and Commander Bali. I think the fundamental question itself, what can I do about others who are going to accept a lower CTC? I think you should just flip your question in perspective there. Look at where you are currently, your skill set, your worth, and see how much more similar people are getting than you. That will let you know that yes, if there are so many others who are getting a better pay than where you think you should be, I think you should focus on that and move there. Then focus too much on what will happen if people don't accept or take up a job at a lesser salary. That shouldn't even be a concern, is what I would say, because that's not in your control. What's in your control is what you can do, your worth, and move ahead. And your decision depends upon what Commander Bali had said and Sahil very rightly said, like your worth, your circumstances, make a decision and move ahead.
Thank you, Dimple. I think that was quite relevant in this context. That brings us to the next. We have finished the series of the negotiation part. Now we have with us Tanvi Patni today, and she has asked a question about feeling stagnated in a certain role. Yeah. So she wants to know, while we may or may not be very happy doing what we do, how can we overcome the feeling of stagnation or boredom in our jobs? Changing jobs cannot be the solution every time, as we all crave due to stability too at some point. So any tips to overcome the boredom or stagnation? Who wants to go for this one?
I think Sahil is the right person.
Commander is now picking on me. Oh, Dimple, let's hear you. Yeah.
No, you know why? Because Sahil has got those, really good, explanations for especially stagnation. And, when you don't get ideas, I'm sure that Sahil will come out with something very wonderful about this. Anyway, both of you.
Let's
Yeah.
let's hear both of them one by one.
Yes,
Sahil,
yes,
you can
yes.
go first.
Dimple, all yours. Dimple, all yours.
I'm fine. I mean, you can just pick it up.
No, please go ahead.
Okay.
Ladies
I like to
first.
hear you. I like to hear you.
All right. Okay, so I come from the L&D space. I've been doing the same kind of work in the past 20 years now. I did reach a stage where these questions, one of our participants is asking us, I was also asking myself. I think that boredom and all of that is not more because of the job. It's probably because of the way you're looking at your job, right? So that's my experience. And so what is it that I can do? What is it that any one of us can do is, there is not just so much that your job offers. There is a lot of engagement. There's a lot of expansion that you can do in your current role, right? It can be levelized. Say maybe you're doing a particular kind of work with this, which is within the area, within a specific area, right? It could be your location I'm talking about. So you try to expand it to other locations, right? If you have a scope within your organization, that's one. The same job can be done in different ways. You can work on improvising. There's something called operational excellence, right? See how you can improvise, increase the speed and the quality without disturbing the quality. Bring in new creative methods of doing the same work. And that's the way you add value to your work. That's the second thing. Third thing is the best thing I'm saying. Nothing is same, right? The whole world is evolving. Every job, right from the HR, recruitment today there has been such a huge evolution in the way recruitment is happening. Even though the process is the same, right? You interview a candidate and he comes on board and all of that. But the way all of these work has been evolved today is totally different, right? So equip yourself with those skill set, think creatively, think like how else can I do this more interestingly, with more fun, with more life in a particular task. And the other thing that I have seen is, what are the latest updates? Are the new tools that people are implementing? Is there a new technology that has been implemented into the same kind of work? So, I mean, if you just open up your eyes, be open to learning new things and incorporating them into your current role, you will really see there's so much to catch up on. Yep, that's from my end. Sahil, over to you.
Thanks, Dimple. I think that was a very valid point. Sahil, over to you. Yeah.
Sure. I think Dimple has covered almost everything. So I'm just going to say one line. And that one line is, I think boredom is the luxury of the rich. जिसको EMI देना होता है ना हर महीने, आप उससे पूछो, वो कोई बोर्डम नहीं होता है. बोलता है जो काम है भैया काम करेंगे, पैसा आता है, मेरे घर का चूल्हा जलता है. तो बोर्डम आए ना आए, it becomes resilience in the way in which you look at your job. And then the smarter ones, what do? They find entertainment in and around the job or outside the job to kill their boredom. They'll pick up a passion, they'll pick up a hobby, they'll do something on weekends that kills their boredom. And Monday to Friday, they'll make peace waiting for the next weekend to come. But ultimately, that's the reality, right? Because ultimately what's going to happen is, I haven't met anyone in my life till today who tells me, I've never, ever for a minute got bored at my job. Many people have interesting days. Many people have days which are very different. Every single day is a new day. They start off with a to-do list, but they never complete it. It happens to all of us. But you will get bored. You will find, okay, I've done this. The quest for something different, the quest for something new will intrigue all of us in different levels basis our personality. But the reality is, boredom is the luxury of the rich.
Thank you, Sahil. Okay, so that brings us to the next question, which has come in our chat box. Himani Sharma wants to know, if a person has switched 2-3 jobs in the early stage of his career with valid reason every time, how can he justify the same during the interview? So both from HR can answer this. Yeah. Dimple, you can start first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question itself has the answer. If your reasons are valid, just state them. Just state your reasons. However, because this question has come and it is an early stage of your career, let me tell you, or probably be a little careful not to switch too much, because organizations do look at, longevity within the system, right? Because they do not want to, it takes, say, around minimum 6 months for you to really perform and settle into the job very well. And it's that much of effort that an organization puts in, and then if a person is moving out within another 6 months or a year, it definitely is not a great show, right? So we need to avoid that. But I'm not saying you have to marry an organization, you have to sit there for every organization has to be 5 years. No, the trend is changing currently. People do understand, people do realize that circumstances were such, especially if it is organized or changes in your company, right? So if those are the reasons and they were not in your control, you can definitely tell them. But then the reasons are something like, I didn't know I got into a job which something I was not sure of. Please do not put across things that way, because it will not give more points to your credibility. So you need to be a little careful when you take such decisions. That is what I would say. Maybe Sahil, you can add more.
No, nothing further to add. I think, Dimple, you put it very well. If the reasons are valid, why justify? But the question is, are the reasons valid according to you, or are the reasons valid according to the person who wants to hire you? So distinguish between the two and you'll be in a happy space.
Okay, thank you, Sahil. To another question from Shushmita Lomkar. She wants to know, my question is, when someone has done internship in another field, but not in the same domain as pursued in B school, how should one tackle during offline interviews when questions are shooted?
Well, I think the question is very broad. It all depends upon the field that you are into, right? And from an employer's perspective, what they look at is, what is it that you have worked upon, and if the skill set, again, right? Because if it's a pure technology related work and the technology doesn't match, then it's going to be a challenge. But then if it is software aspect of the internship that you have done, and there are overlaps, if there are overlaps and the job that you are looking out for also has an overlap to it, and if the employer feels that you will be trainable and get you into the different role, then it works. Otherwise, it's all a permutation and combination. It's not very easy to say unless you are going to let us know what specific internship you did in versus the degree that you were looking at. I mean, or you already possess. I would just say that.
Okay, thank you, Dimple. I hope, Shushmita, that answers your question.
Yes, it does answers my question, and thank you, Dimple ma'am, and to answer to my question, it was wonderfully said. So you said this word overlaps. So I didn't understood what does that overlaps mean. So can you please explain what do you want to say exactly?
Yeah. So Shushmita, when I say overlapping skill sets, say for example, I have a degree, say, in HR, okay? But my internship was only related to designing a program, a training program, right? Because I'm trying to say that. So, but then the job that I'm looking at is to be a core HR generalist job, right? HR BP or something. Now, what percentage of my future role will involve the internship that I have done in? Will make me very comfortable in applying a job, or the employer for them to decide like, yeah, this works, it's okay if the internship is not matching with the role that I'm doing. So so the overlaps between these three things is more important than the internship that you've just taken. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does answers my question, and thank you so much, and thank you to sir, to both of them as well as to Ekta ma'am to arrange this wonderful session. It was insightful.
Thank you,
Thank you, one.
Shweta. So we'll take up one more question after this, and I think that would bring us to 1:30, right? Okay, so I'll take up a question in healthcare, Commander Bali. How difficult is it to switch between two industries in healthcare in the same function? For example, between pharma and hospital manager, basically.
Uh, if you have a totally different skill set, I mean, if you, let us say you're a pharmacist, all right, and you want to move into a let us say a sales domain in hospital, or I think, you need to get those skill sets first, Ekta. I mean, then move into that. There is no point talking about a particular skill set. It is like, if I'm a cobbler and I want to now become a barber, so I need to, learn how to cut hair, isn't it? I mean, I'm not just can't be, doing that. So, I mean, it's a very, very simple answer to this. If you need to move in the same industry into a separate vertical, please develop the skill sets which are required. Or when you were doing this particular job in the same industry, let us say you were a pharmacist, but certainly you found that you have this knack of doing sales. During that 1 year or whatever time you were there, you should have talked about it, and people should have seen you as a person who has an acumen of sales. I'm just giving an example. And then it becomes much more easier for you to also take the decision, and also for the managerial side, or for the I mean, whichever, the team side, the team leader, to say, yes, this guy, I saw him during 1 year, he had that acumen of sales. I think he's better suited for this. So organizations, you still find people who move horizontally. They do it in 2-3 manners. One is to develop a skill set which makes them eligible for that. Second, if they have shown that kind of a domain interest, or they showed that kind of an acumen where they are picked up for that particular role. So it could be any one of these, Ekta. If Dimple and Sahil has any inputs, because it's a general question, it could be for any industry.
Yeah, sure. Sahil and Dimple, you want to add anything here?
No, I think Commander has covered most of it. So nothing from my side. Dimple, over to you.
I think in most of our questions, we did bring about this very clearly, especially the transition one, Sahil, that you picked up. It's more to do with, how you and what skill set and why, and then, deciding upon whether it is really valid or not. We've covered all this in various different questions already.
Okay, great. So that brings us to almost the end of the session. Okay, Sahil and Dimple, you can sum the session up. Sahil, we can start with you. Yeah.
No, I think no specific messages, but I think 2 or 3 things that really stay back with me from a session like this is ask. The power of asking is immense. So therefore, there's something on your mind, Amazing Workplaces, Commander Bali, a lot of others doing this kind of work. Just ask, because don't brew on something which may be in your mind, which you don't ask, and really bothers you. Because it's always good to ask. You get perspectives and then see what's good for you, what works for you, take it up from there. Number 2 is times are extremely difficult, they're challenging, they're unprecedented. So be up on your game, because otherwise you'll drop off the bus. And point number 3 is, as you do some of this, lean on people. So asking is one part of it, but lean on people, right? Because I think together we will tide through these. And of course, as learnings, if we can become a better human race, and may sound more philosophical, but a better Mother Earth, less pollution. Because all of us, what's the point, right? You're living in a world where you can't breathe, you can't breathe well. You're living in a world where you can't step out of your house. I don't think this is something that we signed up for when we were born, but this is all created by us in some form or shape. So let's try and see, without sounding very philosophical, if we can try and give back, at least if not for us, for the generations after us, to have a much better world.
Thank you, Sahil, for summing up so beautifully. Dimple, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, again, thank you so much, Ekta, to you, Commander Bali, for setting this up. It's a very, it's such a beautiful time that when you've organized this, we are just stepping out of COVID, we are stepping into a new year. What better time to, for all these folks who are with us today to re-look at and start really focusing on their career growth and advancement. So I have always followed a couple of things, and I think I would like to share this with everybody here. Always, like in Sahil said the same thing, so maybe a repetition in different words. Please keep updating yourself. Very, very important. We update ourselves in all other forms, right? Whether it's our laptop, our watches, our mobile phones. But self-updation sometimes somehow takes a backseat. And, the updation is becoming very, 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 very critical nowadays. Please be ready for the future disruption which is coming, and it's going to be not just in our lifestyle, it's going to be career, education system, everything. So hop on to those skill set. One is adaptability, your ability to change is very, very critical. Reflect a lot, look into yourself. You should be comparing yourself to yourself, not with others, right? Keep a benchmark maybe as someone else who is above you, not worry about who is not above you, right? So keep a benchmark, see like from yesterday to today, am I moving closer to my career goals? Am I really there? And just believe in yourself, right? You will be able to do it, you can do it. And like Sahil said, ask. Yes, there are enough people today here available. You have enough platforms. Google, you have LinkedIn, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have so many social media platforms where you can reach out to people. Today, things have changed so much. Unlike when I was at the, just beginning my career versus today, I see that you guys have so much of opportunity available to seek and ask, get what you have to do. But however, for you to really reap the benefits, it will only happen if you will take those specific actions. So just, believe in yourself, move ahead, update. Very, very, very important. And those updation has to be aligned with your goals, okay? Otherwise, you will end up updating a lot of things. Yeah, that's it from my end. And thanks a lot. I really enjoyed being part of this panel.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you so much. Commander Bali.
No, I think it's wonderful to have Dimple and Sahil today. Absolutely amazing, and I'm sure for all the participants it was a wonderful experience. I'll just say one thing. I've been this great proponent of hard work. This connotation, smart work, never ever suited me, and especially when you're beginning your career, when you are facing difficult times, it's hard work which is going to stand by you, and persistence. I think these two qualities, and as Sahil and Dimple very rightly said, never ever you have seen so many professionals wanting to help people across for no charge, no cost at all, giving their time, etc. I think these are wonderful times, and we should all, make full use of that. Thank you very much, Ekta, for organizing. God bless you all. Keep safe. We are still sometimes into the vaccination and these programs. I think, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commander Bali. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and for, like Sahil mentioned, for being such an amazing audience. It was wonderful having you here, and look forward to our next session soon. We are planning a session probably in the second week of Feb now, and we'll keep you updated on that. And I'm sure we'll come up with something which is relevant to all of you. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you, Sahil, for joining in. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being there. Thank you for having me.